Hi guys, it's Tony. I am going to show you how to make my salsa, which in Mexico they call it salsa de bandera. So yeah, let's get started. Number one rule, you should never dress in white when you're cooking, but I realized I look like a Backstreet Boy today, and I kind of liked it, so I didn't want to change. Let's get started. So first things first, you need a cutting board. And this is my favorites because it's huge and I can just cut everything on it. My next favorite thing to do when I'm cooking pretty much anything is I like to use the big knife. I don't like to use these little ones. It just makes it harder to chop things. Like, don't use these. I like to use the big one because I'm a size queen. Just kidding. No, but really. Okay. So I took out 3 tomatoes. I think they call them Romano. Romano. Anyways, they're just little. You can use any tomatoes you have or want, but I just use these ones because they're big enough and they're cheap. And you need cilantro. I just use cilantro. I just use a handful. So, and I'm actually only gonna use half because I'm gonna cut the little bundle in half, and because I used the other half for guacamole. But so I'm only using half cilantro, half the cilantro bundle. Depending on how hot you want it, I use. I'm just making the face because this. Anyways, but I just use 1 jalapeno because my mom doesn't like spicy, so I just use 1 and chop it really finely. But if you want it more hotter, you can use more. You can use 2 or 3 jalapenos. And if you want it even hotter, the secret is to roll jalapeno, like you roll it in your hands for like 30 seconds, and that mixes up all the seeds inside and it makes it even hotter. So anyway, but I'm not going to do that because, like I said, my mom doesn't like spicy. And I use an onion. I think this is called a yellow onion, but I don't know why because it's white inside. It's not yellow. Actually, no, I'll use the new one because I'm going to show you a trick of how I cut my onions. The next thing you want to do is... God, I have to get so low. The next thing you want to do is... Well, actually, the next thing I'm going to do is eat some of my gummy bears. I really want to... Okay. I just like to be eating and chewing on something when I cook, so that sounded a little bit raunchy, but it's just gummy bears, guys. Ah, a gummy bear from my cilantro. Okay, so now that you have all your ingredients, the next thing you probably want to do, which you probably should have done when you got out the cutting board, is you get a little Tupperware. Or you can put it in a bowl, but I just put it in a Tupperware just because it's easier to put away and it keeps it fresh with the lid. But I just used one, probably the size of my hand. So, and my hand's pretty big. So, see? Can you see my cutting board? Okay, the first thing I do is I move everything out of my cutting board so I have more space. Just put it on the side. I just put it on the side like so of the cutting board. And now I have enough space on my cutting board. So, I'm gonna rinse the cilantro because I don't want any dirt on it. Okay. So what I normally do is just take my knife. Okay, so I cut it in half. Take one half and put it over the other half. Each piece with a handle. Cut it in half again. And I do the same thing. So now you have a little bundle instead of a long thing of cilantro. So now that you have a little bundle, make sure that I even it out with my knife and fingers, and then I just chop it really finely. Move my fingers down. Okay. And you're just gonna bundle it up again now that it's chopped, but just keep it in that little bundle. Just continue chopping until you see that it's fine. And normally you just like to chop it until it's fine, until I don't see any humongous weeds like that. So normally I have my hands here and stuff while I chop so that it doesn't fly everywhere, but I want you to be able to see it on the camera. So. Okay, now you see you have no little leaves, everything's really chopped. I bring the container to the edge of the cutting board and the counter, and with my knife I just swoop everything in. Make sure your hands are dry after you chop because you don't want them to be all slippery and wet and then you can't use the knife. Okay. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to chop the tomatoes. So I'll just cut off the ends. Which you really don't need to do because you're chopping it really finely, so it's not like that, but I just don't like to do it. So I'm going to rinse the tomatoes. This is similar to how I'm going to be cutting the onion, but what I do is I take my knife and make a little, probably about ½ an inch, very softly. I don't want to go all the way to the bottom. See how it's cut barely to the bottom? And I'm just going to make little slices. So you should have something that looks like that. Okay. I'm going to do it the other direction. Again, little slices. So you should have a little open flower, kind of like that. Okay, now that you have that tomato that way, it's easier to chop because now you have little squares, so you just go ahead and chop it. And you do the same thing as the cilantro, you just bundle it up in the little pile, and you just chop. The tomatoes you don't actually want too fine like the cilantro because you still want it, the salsa to be a little crisp and fresh, and you want to be able to taste the tomatoes. So I just cut them so that they're little squares. I know this seems like a lot of work, but it's actually, for me, for one thing, it's habit, and for two, I just feel like it makes it simpler to cut when you already have the slices and stuff like that. So, see, because you're already pretty much getting a little square. I don't want to take forever making salsa. Okay. So chop, 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 chop. Okay. And bring it into the cleaner. Okay. Now I'm going to do the jalapeno. I'm going to cut out the ugly part, and I'm going to go ahead and cut out the stem. I'm going to cut it in half now. And you can have it with the seeds depending on how spicy you want it, but like I said, my mom doesn't like spicy, so and actually I love spicy, but I can't have spicy because I have something called GERD. It's gastrointestinal reflux disease. Anyways, so now that my jalapeno is cut in half, I'm just going to peel all the seeds off. So now you have a clean jalapeno without the seeds. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other half. Take out all the seeds. Just came off really easily. Oop. So I'm just going to rinse it now. Make sure there's no seeds on it. The way I like to cut my jalapenos is I like to cut little thin strips. Once again, I do this because for me, I just feel like it'll just be easier to chop. So you have little strips, little long strips. I bundle up my strips, and I do this similar to the cilantro. I want the jalapenos really fine because I don't want it to be spicy. So I don't want my mom to chew on a giant slice of jalapeno. The way that you chop it really finely is you make sure that your cuts are really close together and fast. If you're scared about putting your finger near it, that's fine. Just make sure that they're all bundled. You can actually just hold the edge of the cutting board and just make sure that your cuts, that your chops are fast and close together so that everything's being chopped finely. And you want to make sure that the knife is going forward, not backwards, because you don't want to end up sliding and chopping cutting yourself. So now we have a really fine chop. Again, you just slide it over into the container. So you have cilantro, tomato, and jalapenos already in. Okay, now I'm going to show you how I cut my onion. My great-grandmother taught me this. Taught me how to make it. So, just cut the end. I'm cutting just very thin over the skin. I'm making 4. I'm making 4 little slices just right over the skin, and I'm probably do it about halfway since I'm only going to use half of this onion. So then I go to the line, so I cut it down a little bit halfway. So I go to a line where I cut it halfway, and I kind of just slice through the skin a little bit. Halfway down the onion, where I got my lines. This way, you can just pull out the skin, the outer layer, and you'll have, then it's just much easier to chop because you could use the food processor, but I'm famous for this salsa because it just everybody tells me that it tastes crispy and fresh, and it just tastes better when you actually make it with your hands instead of a machine. Homemade food. It's the magic of homemade food. Okay, so with onions, similar to how I cut pretty much everything else, I make little lines, again, just halfway through the tomato. I mean, the onion. Okay, so I made lines all the way across the onion like that, and now I'm going to do it the opposite way. Vertical or horizontal? Okay. So now you should have a bunch of little squares. I'm going to put my onion on the side, sideways, and I'm just going to cut really thin on the edge of the onion to cut out little thin squares of the onion. I don't want this, I want this probably as fine as the tomatoes were, not as fine as the cilantro, so I still want that crunch and that taste of the onions along with the tomatoes, so see, so we only cut half the onion, and we came up with a bunch of little squares. So just like everything else, I'm just going to bunch it all up together. I'm just going to pick the parts that came out a little chunkier, make sure that they're cut a little thinner. Okay, so just going to chop again, chop, make all your chops a little close to each other so that everything is finely chopped. Bundle everything up and one more chop through. I usually go one way and then I go back. That way if I missed anything. Alright. So now you have fine chopped tomatoes, onions. The reason why this is called bandera or flag salsa in Mexico is because it has the cilantro, which is green, the tomato, which is red, and the onion, which is white, which are the colors of the Mexican flag. If you didn't know that. Okay. Now the last few steps is I'm going to take a fork. You can use a spoon or a whisk or whatever you want, but I like to use a fork. And the last three ingredients that I forgot to tell you at the beginning is going to be salt, pepper, and a lime. I'm only going to be using half a lime. So cut the lime in half, since I'm going to be using half a lime. So, and squeeze it in. Got all that half a lime in there. Okay. You probably want like a teaspoon of salt. I don't really use teaspoons because my grandmother taught me how to measure with my hand. So if you're measuring with your hand, I probably just have a little bunch right there in the middle of my palm. Same thing with the pepper. A teaspoon of pepper. And now put it all up. Make sure you really scoop down to the bottom and get the cilantro that you put in first, because you really want it all. My secret ingredient that for my mom specifically, normally I like it just like this, but again, because she doesn't like it spicy, so if you don't like it spicy, I add a little bit of ketchup, which adds just the sweetness of the ketchup and a little bit more of the tomato taste. So I probably add about 2 squirts of ketchup. like the amount of ketchup you would normally put on your hot dog. Unless you're ketchup freak and you put like a whole bottle of it. Don't do that. Okay. And there's the salsa. Red, white, and green. So the salsa you can eat with chips, you can put it on your food. My mom likes to put it on her scrambled eggs. And she also likes to eat it by the spoonful. Because it's not spicy. Could be spicy if you wanted to, but this particular one from my mom is not spicy, and it's just sweet, lemony, salty enough that you could just eat it with a spoonful. Anyways, so that was my Tony's favorite salsa. Hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know if you make it at home and how it turned out. Bye guys. Like always, glitter kisses.